So basically this talk is essentially about you guys. I'm going to try and give you some new information, a new sort of angle on veganism that you may not have known before, so that will give you some confidence. So how are you today? You said before you're good, yeah? How's the fair? Has anybody had a little look around?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's busy, isn't it? Yeah. Loads of little positive local businesses, tasty food. For me, it's just a really, really good event that's happening today. So, back to basics. That is the name of this talk. And so what it means is I'm going to bring you guys back to the origins of veganism and what it really means, because a lot of the time, or sometimes we can get into conversations that aren't about veganism and we're arguing and we're discussing things and we're wasting time, when what we need to do is revert back to the original philosophy. And that's one of the key things, is that veganism is a philosophy as well. It gets labelled as a diet, it gets labelled as all sorts of things, but it's a philosophy, it's a way of living, it's a way of living our lives. My name's Berty Justice. Berty was a nickname that I got given when I was a young child, so that's what I respond to now. But luckily enough for me, Justice is my surname, my legal surname, so I'm very humbled to have that as my surname. My website, bertyjustice.co.uk, is like an information hub for people to use, so a lot of the information that I'll be talking about today is on that website, along with all these slides from today, so if you want to see the slides again, they'll be on my website this week, so that's a free resource for you guys to use whenever you want. Pass on to your friends, share around, all the good stuff. Really, this talk is about animals and reconnecting us with animals. So this animal is a thinking, feeling, sentient individual that I met at a sanctuary. It enjoyed sunbathing just like me. It breathed just like me. It had a family just like me. It could feel pain, it could feel happiness. It loved being scratched on the head. I don't love being scratched on the head, some people do, but what I'm trying to say is that there's a lot of similarities that we have with animals that are ignored. And I'm trying to realign everybody and remind everybody that we have more things in common with these animals than we have not in common. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Awesome. Who in the audience has read the original philosophy, the original writings of the Vegan Society? Could you raise your hand if you read it? Okay. So that's an interesting thing, because for a long time, I'd read it, but then I forgot about it, and I kind of went along and I was having discussions about veganism, but actually it's really good for us to go back to the roots, go back to why we're creating this amazing fair, why we are talking about veganism, why we are promoting it, because it all started like this. Veganism, a philosophy and way of living which seeks to exclude, as far as is possible and practicable, all forms of exploitation of and cruelty to animals for food, clothing or any other purpose, and by extension promotes the development and use of animal-free alternatives for the benefit of humans, animals and the environment. In dietary terms, it denotes the practice of dispensing with all products derived wholly or partly from animals. So every time I read that, I go, yeah, that makes sense, yeah, that makes sense, yeah, that makes sense, yeah, that makes sense. I haven't found anybody who, when I present them that original philosophy, has said that's a bad idea. You can't argue with that. It's a way of life that seeks to do your best for animals and everything else that's connected. It just makes a lot of sense. So veganism is a philosophy that was coined, and yes, there probably were people who obviously realised that it's wrong to hurt animals in the past, but there was never a term for it. So this group, sometimes referred to as the Attic Club, came up with the philosophy, and this is the philosophy that we live today. And that's why I like to return to the roots, return to the origins of where it comes from, so we can go, when we are discussing and sharing information about veganism, we go, this is what veganism is, and this is how we're going to try and live our lives. So this is me about 30 years ago. My hair's changed a little bit. I might go back to that hairstyle, haven't decided, I'm still unsure. But I knew about veganism from a very young age. I was very fortunate that one of my parents told me what veganism is and tried to instill those instill that philosophy in me, but I decided to rebel against that because I thought that was the right thing. In my immaturity, in my youth, I was like, I love eating animals, they taste good. I know the facts. I know the facts about the dairy industry and I know the facts about vivisection, but I'm going to decide that I don't want to do that. So my view is that I gradually grew up, and in my growing up, one of my oldest friends is a vegetarian from birth, pretty much. He may have eaten like a little bit of meat, maybe once or twice. But what that says is that human beings don't need to eat meat. He's a human being. I know him. He's pretty much never eaten meat. We've got millions of people in places like India who've never eaten meat. So all the discussions you need to eat meat are gone because we have people who don't do it. But I knew that all along. He is one of my closest friends. But I was like, I knew that, but I decided to look the other way. Whenever I found out about where dairy comes from, I would look the other way. When I found out about what happens to baby chicks, I would just look the other way. And I wasn't really connecting myself with how we kill animals and the reality that we don't need to. My priority, my taste buds, were more of a priority than the whole of these animals' lives. And it took me a long time to realize that that isn't the right thing to do. So these are my stepping stones that I took towards veganism, and these are the ones that I promote and suggest to people to use because I know they're achievable and I've helped other people do them. And basically, about 10 years ago, somebody gave me a recipe book, and it was about philosophy, it was about the world that we live in, and it talked about slaughterhouses, and it talked about the practices of where animals come from. And I was like, when I thought about it deeply, I was like, that disturbs me. That's a weird practice. Why are we doing that to people? And it questioned whether we should be eating animals at all. It questioned about the sustainability of growing huge amounts of plants, feeding those to animals, and then we eat the animals. And it was kind of like, logic says, why don't we just grow the plants? The plants actually, they take carbon out of the planet, whereas cows burp and fart carbon dioxide back into the planet. It's kind of like, but the reality is, unless we know the basics, we kind of wander on with the rest of our lives, but we need to return to them and go, it's very simple, grow plants instead, and just eat the plants instead of the animals. It's better for the animals and it's better for the planet, but I'll get to that later. And then, so in my own time, I was like contemplating what I was doing with my life, and I was like, actually, I don't want to be a part of a system that kills animals for food that I actually don't need. It's illogical, it doesn't make any sense, and it doesn't make me feel good to eat animals knowing that it came from somebody. So I then gradually went through pescatarian, and then my friend pointed out to me that fish are animals too, and I was like, oh yeah, they are. I wasn't stupid, but I was just like ignorant to the truth, and I forgot that they're animals too, and I forgot that they're thinking, feeding sentient individuals as well as all the land animals. And so at that point I was like, I can't do that. And then I learned about the dairy industry and the way that we take calves away from mothers, and I was like, I can't do that. I can't be a part of that system anymore. And then I went vegan, and then when I was vegan, I realized that we need to get this message out, and we need to educate people and help them along these steps, because everybody's at their own step, so we need to be supportive of them at every step that they take. I used to love eating animal products. If I ate animal products today, I'd probably enjoy the taste, but where it came from would deeply hurt me, would deeply disturb me. So I used to eat a lot of kebabs. I used to eat all the crap. I basically ate all the crap. I ate everything pretty much. I'd eat more kebabs as well. And I'd eat chicken wrapped in bacon, which is a form of chicken wrapped in a slice of a pig. And I used to thought that it does taste good. But pigs in blankets, yeah. There's all these weird common things that we use, the traditions that we take part in, but actually, when we look at the true realities of them, they're not good. I used to love eating eggs. I'd probably have an omelette with 6 eggs in it. Loved it all the time, scrambled, boiled, all the time. Amazing, tastes really good. But now when I see animal products, I ask myself these deeper questions, and that was someone. That was those kebab meat, all the meat that I used to eat, that used to be someone. How many were there in their families? And what age were they killed? Because we talk about free range, we talk about local, we talk about backyard, but the majority of the animals that we eat in the UK, we kill them young, a very fraction of their life. And they're like, oh, they're having a happy life. What, for 3 months? 6 weeks? 6 months? That's not a happy life. And if you go to a factory farm, you will see that it's not a happy life. And eggs. So my perception on eggs has now changed, because actually I used to have hens, or my family had hens, and when I used to collect the eggs, the hens were trying to like peck me to say, no, I don't want you to take my egg. That was a direct, I know that directly, that they didn't want me to take it. They wouldn't have pecked me otherwise, because the rest of the time they're friendly and they come and sit on your lap. But when I went to take their eggs, their belongings, they didn't want that to happen. But we don't, when we see eggs in a supermarket, we don't think about that. A majority of people think of taste and where I'm going to put that in a meal. But the reality is we need to revert our thinking back to what it really is. And actually it's an ovulation of the chicken as well. It's a very weird thing that we eat as humans. The great thing about veganism is there's so many options. Yeah. Have you had this one before?
Yeah.
Yeah, they've actually got some samples here as well. Amazing kebab meat. So I can have those kebabs. We can have all the food that we used to like, but now we just have a vegan version. This is a scrambled tofu après bap with a guacamole side that I had in a restaurant. Absolutely amazing. And there's so many vegan products that taste pretty much the same, but don't come from an animal. And today in the fair, there's loads of options. There's loads of samples for everybody to taste. And it's about finding the ones that work for you. These are the ones that I like, but find what works for your taste buds. There's so many milks out there nowadays. What are your favourite milks? So could you guys let me? Oatly barista, that was fast. That was very fast. Oatly as well. Anyone else? Oatly. Anyone else?
Almond unsweetened.
Almond unsweetened, okay.
Oats.
Oat.
I've recently read that actually that's very high in calories, and we're going to go back to almond.
Okay, fair enough. And you yourself?
I do quite like the hazelnut now.
Yeah. Have you had some of the ones today?
No.
There's a stall with like 5 or 6 different plant milks. So that's the thing about veganism. There's all these amazing products coming out all the time that just a new flavour, a new way of presenting food. The other thing is what I try to promote, as well as the mock foods, because they're really convenient, is whole food, plant-based vegan diets. So what that means, for those that don't know, is food in its original state, or as close as you can. So cooking from scratch, fruit. Look, just put your hand up if that looks tasty. Exactly. Do you know what I mean? Like, if that was there, I wish I could just pull it out of the screen. Do you know what I mean? It's that good, and that's vegan food right there. Natural vegan food that comes off trees. And I was picking some mulberries recently. It was just like, that's amazing. That's amazing. That's amazing. What else have we got? We have curry. So again, cooking from scratch or as close to you can. So you've got some like brown rice, lots of salads in the middle, edamame beans, some baked cauliflower. Anyone had baked cauliflower before? Okay, highly recommend it. It's amazing. Check it out. On the left we have falafels, obviously classic falafels. Salads, free salads there with a dressing. On the right you have like a tasty fresh avocado. All these other amazing whole foods. And they're healthy as well. So they taste good, they look good, and they're healthy. Fruit is amazing. I love fruit. I'm very biased. I could just eat fruit all the time. And that's because it tastes amazing. It's refreshing. It's got so many flavours in there. It's really, really good food to go for. Watermelon. Wake up, have watermelon for breakfast. Maybe some oats. So later on, Julie's going to give a talk more about health. So I'm just going to give you a little overview about health. And basically, when I was younger, I was like, oh, what about this nutrient? Oh, I can't be a vegan or a vegetarian because they're weak. There's all these kind of myths that came to me. And then through my research, what I found is that the NHS, the British Dietetics Association, the American Dietetics Association, and the Academy of Nutrition, all of these huge international bodies say that you can be a healthy vegan at every stage of life. So that's infancy to the end of your life. What their research also shows is that you can be a healthy athlete. You can be a vegan athlete as well. So it's a bit of confidence to us to know, okay, so there are there are health bodies that say you can be a healthy vegan. When you get into those discussions about those individual nutrients, they're all there in these papers. What I've created is a PDF of those papers, so that's free for everybody to use, share around. When you're having a discussion about veganism, pass them onto this PDF and say, well, this is what these health bodies, this is what the NHS are saying about a vegan diet, so let's discuss this as well as the other things that we're discussing. And later on, so I mentioned a little bit about the athletes. Paula's giving a talk later, so she's going to talk about all the amazing vegan athletes that there are in the world, winning, competing, world record holders, just explaining and showing all of those amazing athletes. So the animals. So I've talked a little bit about health, and at the beginning I talked about the animals. And I showed you that picture of when I was younger, and when I was that age, I was conditioned. I was deeply conditioned to love one animal, and I was eating others at the same time, and I wasn't connecting those two dots. I wasn't killing the animals, but what I was doing is I was participating, and in some cases supporting, paying directly these people to kill the animals. And that's one of the issues with the UK, is that we are deeply conditioned and deeply separated from what is actually happening. That animal on the left is no different from that other animal on the right. There's no meaningful difference. They might have a different name, they might have a different species, but there's no meaningful difference as to why we should eat one and love the other. Why some should be brought into our homes and nurtured, and others should be brought into our homes, prepared, put in the oven, and then consumed. It's illogical, but we are conditioned to think that we should treat one better than the other. But when you look at it from a step back, it doesn't make any sense. Let's just look after them all. Let's just be kind to all of them, and let's do whatever we can for all of them. Love them all. Why not love them all? No one's come up with an argument to me about why we shouldn't love them all. That seems like the most logical position for me. So who's seen the film Cowspiracy? If you could raise your hand. Okay. So Cowspiracy is an environmental film, and it talks about how devastating animal agriculture is to planet Earth and human existence, basically. And from their website, cowspiracy.com/facts, they have all the papers. So they don't just talk about science. They don't just talk about the reality of what's happening in the Amazon or the fact that the oceans are depleting and they're collapsing. They have scientific evidence to back that up. So that's free for everybody to use as well. If you haven't seen the film, I highly recommend you guys check it out. It's on Netflix, or I can lend you the DVD. So the environment is really important to me. This is the planet that we live on. And through my research, what I've found is that if everybody lived a vegan lifestyle, so that's 7 billion people, if we all lived that lifestyle, more humans could be fed. Think about it on a logical level. If we're growing plants, feeding them to animals, and eating the animals, why don't we just eat the plants, and then we have all that grazing land that we would have had for the animals freed up? It's illogical. It doesn't make any sense. Less land, like I said, less land would be used. This isn't my opinion. This is the consensus of several scientific bodies. I'm not just saying, oh, do this because of veganism. This is the added bonus that comes with veganism. Less carbon dioxide. Yeah, if you have less cows, you have less burping cows, you have less farting cows, you have less nitrous oxide, you have less methane that comes from them. And then you have less water use as well. If you think about a cow or a pig, they drink a huge amount of water. You grow an apple tree, you haven't got to water it all year, it just does itself. The other thing about veganism is you get all these different topics that aren't anything to do with veganism and are really illogical. So, has anybody heard lions eat meat, therefore humans should eat meat? Yeah? So regular, isn't it? You start talking about discussing veganism, and then people latch on to these things that I call baseless arguments. A lion eats meat. Cool. A lion doesn't wear any clothes, doesn't use a mobile phone, doesn't have a house. Are you going to replicate the lion? No. Why are you not going to replicate the lion? Because it's illogical, isn't it? Say again? Lions don't cook. Lions aren't herbivores. Lions can't eat the amount of plants we can eat. It's all when we take away the nonsense, we move to the truth, we move back to the basics, the reality is we're not lions. And lions do lots of weird stuff that we shouldn't do as human beings. Also, there's lots of animals in the world that humans don't say, oh, I'm going to copy that. So I've never heard somebody say, oh, a giraffe eats leaves, I'm going to eat leaves. Well, that's what animals do. Yeah, we're copying animals. Well, no, you're picking on one type of animal. Cows, oh, I'm going to eat grass because cows eat grass. Oh, I'm going to roll in mud because pigs roll in mud. Well, no one says that because it's illogical. And on the right, we have a black widow, and that's a female on the right and a male on the left. And they've just made love, and then after they make love, the female eats the male. I've never heard. Just imagine, right? Just imagine someone's like, oh, I'm going to eat my partner. Sorry, what? Sorry, what did you say? Oh, I'm going to eat my partner. What do you mean? Well, animals do it. No, that's insane. That's the same argument that gets brought up about lions. Religion. So there's lots of religions in the world, and that's fantastic. I'm not here to point fingers at religion, but what I am here to do is to say that religion is not an excuse to hurt animals. When you biologically know that you don't need to eat animal products, what kind of God would want you to hurt animals? Not a compassionate one, not a loving one, in my humble opinion. And I have lots of religious friends who are vegan too, so they still do whatever they need to do, but they just don't hurt animals in that process. So has anybody heard of vegan Sidekick? Okay, so for those that haven't, he has some really awesome cartoons online that explain debunk and explain all the arguments that get presented to vegans. So you've got like grass-fed. Yeah, it might be grass-fed, but it's still going to be killed after 3 years. Or how is it killed? You know what I mean? You're talking about one element of the full cycle of how we treat animals. Food chain. It's a common one, isn't it? I've seen no evidence about a food chain that people are talking about that involves a supermarket. There won't be evidence of saying this is the human food chain. We've got plants, and we've got animals, then we've got a shop, and then we've got humans. It's illogical, isn't it? There is actually, on a scientific level, there's a thing called the trophic level that talks about, it's very similar to the food chain, and they put humans below anchovies, and they put us above pigs, and then polar bears are like top of the food chain, or like apex predators. That food chain is not an excuse to hurt animals, and especially a food chain that doesn't exist. It's like talking about unicorns or talking about fairies. These are things that don't exist. You can't use that to eat animals. So I've been really lucky that over the years I've had a lot, probably in the hundreds if not thousands of conversations about veganism, and a lot of that has stemmed from street activism. So I do a lot of stuff where I sit on stalls or I interview people in the public, and with the stalls you get people from the public. You can't predict what they're going to say. A lot of the topics that I talked about before, they'll say them one after the other, and you'll be like, oh, there's the food chain again. Oh, there's lions. And what I've experienced is I've experienced angry people, happy people, sad people, depressed people, scared people. We're human beings. We're very complex. And what I promote is techniques that we can use when speaking to people. One way of looking at it is, how would you like to be welcomed to this festival? Would you like people welcoming you, showing you round, welcoming stalls, happy faces? Or would you want people swearing at you, throwing stuff at you? It's not inviting. You're not a vegan, get out. No, where's that going to get us? What we should be doing, oh, you're non-vegan. Oh, cool. Have you tried this? Have you heard about this? Why have you come? Have you come with your friend? What's inspired you to come today? And by being friendly and patient with people, we invite them into this philosophy, this way of living. If we shout at them, if we get angry at them, if we take our frustrations in life out on them, we push them away. From my experience.
DXD type stuff.
Say again?
DXD.
But there's plus and minuses to those kind of things. But I was sort of trying to say from my perspective that if I've got angry at somebody, generally it's not been helpful. if somebody's got angry at me, what I try to do is point out to them that they're getting angry at me, and hopefully that calms it down a bit. I'll be like, what? We're only discussing about where animal products come from. Why are you getting angry? So there's a lot of psychology within veganism, and one of the things that happens in stalls is that I found that you have to listen to a lot of people. And what I tried to do is get people to really listen to what people are saying. Instead of, in the past, I would used to wait for people to finish talking, and I'm just like, I'm ignoring what you're saying because I'm going to talk next. If you listen to what they're saying, it's a more constructive conversation. And as you would a friend, try to speak to everyone about veganism the way you would want to be spoken to, and how you would speak to one of your friends. Because then you're like, oh, I'm not going to say something abrupt to my friends because I know that it would upset them or put them off or make them angry. Like, does this make sense? Yeah, awesome. So has anybody heard of Bite Size Vegan? Yeah? So she has some really awesome educational videos on YouTube, very short, huge range of topics. And one of the things that stands out for me is that I was trying to be perfect. I was trying to say the right thing at the right moment to the right person and in the right way, and then they'll go vegan, or then they'll get the message, or oh no, I didn't say that answer because I was caught off guard. The reality is that the animals that we're trying to grow awareness for and trying to help, they don't care if we mess up, if we stutter, if we say the wrong thing, if we forgot to say the right thing. What they want is us to make an effort. And what I advocate for you guys is, like I was saying about being active vegans, is tap into your skills. If you're a chef or you're a cook, cook for your workmates. In my case, I've got a big mouth, I know how to use a camera, so I make videos. If you are, you're not very confident, go and sit on a stall with somebody who is a bit more confident than you and listen to how they interact with people. Or if you're a writer, tap into that. Start a blog. It's free to start a blog. You can do, there's so many different things. I can't tell you what you're good at. You'll discover that and you'll go, okay, so how does that align with veganism? Oh, there's another market coming up soon, a vegan market. Maybe I could go and volunteer there. Or there was that petition that I should have been... Why didn't I get around to sharing that petition around? There's so many things that we can all do, and just focus on what you're good at and evolve and develop that. I'll bring it back to the stepping stones that I advise people to take. And hey, so this is a way of allowing people to make their own way to veganism, and allowing them to, in their own time, whatever fits in with their family at the moment, whatever work commitments they've got on, you're like, okay, so where are you at the moment? Look at that next step and think, why am I not there? Why am I not vegetarian? I love animals too. Why am I not a vegetarian? Why am I not a vegan? What's stopping me? And you give people a nudge, essentially. You say, well, what's stopping you doing this? You've been talking about how scary the dairy industry. You've been saying that you don't like how calves are being taken away from mothers. So what's stopping you buying the plant milks? And we give people a little nudge, an encouraging nudge. Like I was saying earlier, you don't want to shout at them and say, you've got to be a vegan overnight, because it won't work, in my experience. You encourage them, you help them along, and treat them like a friend. Come over to mine, I'll cook you some dinner. I'll buy you some plant milk. Have you tried the almond one? Have you tried the hazelnut one? It's really good. I had hazelnut. What did I have? I had rice and coconut milk in the same one. It was amazing. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? That's what overall I've said a lot of things, but I just want it to make sense to you guys and useful information that is achievable for you to do and to pass on. So I've touched on a few negative things about veganism, because the reality of where animal products come from is negative, is horrible. And the great thing is that we don't have to be a part of that system anymore. And while you're vegan, sometimes you can get a little bit lonely. Sometimes you're like, am I the only vegan in the village? Am I the only vegan in my family? Why is everybody giving me 200 questions again? I'm over this. We've gone through protein. We've gone through everything. Why are you still asking me 20 questions? But the reality is that we're part of this amazing community that's made up of millions of human beings. In the UK alone, they did a survey, and 500,000 people signed on that survey to say that they were vegan. That was like 4 or 5 years ago. Now things are exploding. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure there's probably millions of vegans in the UK. But in the world, there is definitely millions of vegans. You're not alone. We're not a small community. We are a community of millions. Every year, if somebody eats a vegan diet, they eat 1,095 meals. So average 3 meals a day, times that by 365 days. We eat 1,095 meals. Just imagine all those 1,095 meals. They probably just about fit in this room. Well, my size, I eat a lot. But like, that is a difference. That will have an impact on demand. And you persuade one person to change their diet. So that's 2,000. They persuade another person. That's 3,000. That is a difference. If all you can do is, by living a vegan lifestyle, is just eat vegan food, you're making a difference. Your family will recognise that you're vegan, that you're healthy, and you're happy, and it makes a lot of sense to you, and that has another positive impact. And by being yourselves and by being vegan, the food that you eat, you do make a difference. The friends that you speak to, you will make a difference. It takes time. That's one thing I've noticed, that with people it does take time for them to get it. We're all different. It took me years to get it. And what happens is in a year's time, your family go, oh, I'm not drinking dairy anymore. And you're like, why is that? And they're like, well, it doesn't make any sense. We're not baby cows. And you're like, yeah, we know. We had that discussion 2 years ago. But you have to be patient, because that light switch, that penny dropping, doesn't happen overnight. In some cases, you've got to play the long game, and just do, like I was saying, just find the skills that you're good at, whatever it is, writing, making videos, working on stalls. That does make a difference. And like I was saying, the animals don't want us to be perfect with our activism. They want us to be active. So just back to the choices. There's so much choice now. The Fayre's full of amazing choices. Healthy, whole foods. Easy, tasty, healthy. Fruit. You know what I feel about fruit. And coming to the end of the talk, I'm going to return you guys to the original wording of the philosophy that is veganism. Because that's the basics. That's where we should start from, and then we build from there. And it goes like this. I'm just going to wait for that child to stop singing. I'm not very good at singing, so it's not a good competition. He's going to win. So, veganism is a philosophy and way of living which seeks to exclude, as far as is possible and practicable, all forms of exploitation of and cruelty to animals for food, clothing, or any other purpose. And by extension, promotes the development and use of animal-free alternatives for the benefit of humans, animals, and the environment. In dietary terms, it denotes the practice of dispensing with all products derived wholly or partly from animals. That, to me, is awesome. That, to me, makes a lot of sense. And that is why I'm here promoting this, because there's nothing better than that. That is to me, is like what all human beings should be doing. And that's why I keep saying to all human beings, why are you not doing this? Thanks for your time. That is the end of the talk.
Thank you.
So we have a couple of minutes for questions, but I'll also be around on one of the stalls volunteering today, and you can grab me if you've got any other questions. So does anybody have any questions? Sure.
You showed there are a lot of milk substitutes and placed in this, but I find like here in the UK, if I talk to my family, for example in Brazil, it's not like that.
Okay.
I find it's very difficult, like trying to make my own vegan.
Okay.
Because like, you can just drink oat milk. No, that doesn't exist. Yeah.
So so I've been focusing on the UK because that's the market around us. Yeah. The the reality is that veganism isn't as accessible as it is in the UK. We've got it really easy. So that for everyone we know in the UK, we haven't got excuses. They haven't got excuses. But for your family who don't live in the UK or maybe live in more remote parts of the world, if they've got a blender, they can make their own plant milks. So you just have a handful of nuts and water. I think it's some muslin cloth. So there is that option. Obviously, it's not as convenient, but giving them that option, saying, okay, yeah, fair enough, you can't buy it in the shops, but you can make it at home. In my case, I went through a stage where I wasn't drinking any plant milk, so I was just having water on my oats and putting fruit in there, so it's still having flavour. So there is still, it doesn't restrict you from eating breakfast, but the option of a blender might be, do you know what I mean, a way around it? Because, yeah, it is. The reality is that veganism hasn't reached every corner of the world yet, but there's a different avenue they can take if they make their own. Any more?
What was that cartoonist you were on about?
Vegan Sidekick.
Sidekick?
Yeah, Vegan Sidekick. So he's like your buddy, basically. That's his beginning philosophy. Is like he's he's got like, so basically because we're in such a social media and internet age, he's created these memes. So when you get into those discussions, you're like, well, here's a meme. Here's an explanation of why what you're saying doesn't make sense. Yeah.
He's also done a couple of books, and one of them is a children's version, which is sort of censored.
Cool.
Okay, well, thanks for your time, everyone, and I hope that was useful. And as I said, I'll be around for the rest of the day if anybody has any other questions. Have a lovely day.
Thank you.
Thank you.